I guess it's time to start talking when they play the music, when the music goes down. My name's Clint Covington. I lead the accessibility effort for Windows and Office divisions at Microsoft. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You can come join us if you like. I want to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing as a company and the journey that we've been on, and share some of the insights of things we've learned. About 3 years ago, I was asked to start taking a look at where we are as a company on accessibility and making our products more inclusive for everybody. And we have this thing called the Ability Summit. It's an opportunity where we bring people in from all across the company who have disabilities, and we all get together and talk about our challenges and different ways to overcome the adversity that the disability might bring, as well as just meet and mingle. And I met a lady at this event, and she talked about how Microsoft used to be really great in accessibility. And she says, but something's happened, and I'm struggling more and more to do my job and to be productive. And she was a project manager, and she had taken a class at the local community college on Project, but had to drop that class because at the time Project was not accessible to a screen reader. And that was this moment where all of a sudden I recognized the decisions that we make as engineering leaders have this direct impact in people's lives, in their ability to get an education, to hold a job, to get promoted, to thrive in the workplace, and to take advantage of many of the economic opportunities. And it was as I was going through that, and plus having a lot of other conversations with our customers, where I recognized the power of this statement around our mission of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And so we started having conversations internally about how this is an area where we can do a lot better. From there, we had great support from Satya and his senior leadership team, and we started this accessibility surge. It was the largest, we've been involved in accessibility for a long time, but it was the largest engineering surge in the history of our company on the accessibility front. It involved well over 250 teams just in the Office division, but it very quickly ended up spreading across the entire company with the goal of just making sure that all of our products ship accessible, but yet and also usable. We reinvested in our first-party platforms, making Narrator and making improvements to Magnifier and looking at our first-party experiences inside of Windows. We fixed thousands of bugs, and in cases where you couldn't just fix bugs, we rewrote entire layers of the accessibility platform in all of our apps. We did thorough tests through almost every piece of UI that we ship across the company, and published hundreds of conformance statements to help our customers, especially in the government organizations, to procure more accessible solutions, and also to give them clear guidance around deployment. In the end, there's one thing that I started to learn as we were going through this process, and that is that experiences that are designed to work really well for people with disabilities are experiences that work better for everybody. And we started to recognize that as you really focus on making a great screen reader experience, it ensures that you have the right things for someone who's in a wheelchair and has mobility impairments. And it also makes sure that the keyboard access and all of that works really well for power users who just prefer to use the keyboard. And so at the fundamental level, what happened at Microsoft was starting to be a culture change around how we view accessibility as not just one of those check boxes that we have to do for compliance, but as something that can be a product differentiator that can help us create products that are more easier and natural for everyone to use. But to get there, what it required was this fundamental culture change across the organization where we had to reset expectations. We had to have some hard conversations around how we make investments and how we build our products on the engineering side. Now as we're starting to look back from the other side of that surge, and we've got through most of our products, it's been, pretty successful. Microsoft 365 products today are the most compliant and usable versions of our products that have ever shipped. We've been able to win awards on multiple levels for the work that we've been doing in this area. But I want to share one quick story that to me really landed the impact of the work that we had. So my team was presenting for a full day at a government conference to people that work on accessibility inside the government. And during lunch, a guy came up to me and he pulled me aside from his manager and he says, he was blind. And he told me, he says, Clint, I just want to thank you for the work that Microsoft is doing. And I graciously said, you're welcome, happy to do it. And he said something I thought was profound. He said, if I lose my job tomorrow, I'm confident I can get another one and I can still take care of my family. And it was at that moment when I was able to kind of reflect back to the person who couldn't take a class on project and then feel pretty good about the success and the progress we've made. As I reflect on that, I'm super happy that the gentleman felt that way. I also kind of look and say, hey, if having a job is the bar, that's a pretty low bar. And so when I think about what I would really be excited about is somebody coming up and telling me that they got promoted, they were able to do something they've never done before. That to me is really where we would like to get to, is just thinking about accessibility and inclusive design as something that helps people really achieve their best, and where we in the software just kind of get out of the way and we let the human creativity take over. And I tell you those stories because those stories are kind of key in our cultural journey. Those are stories that I've shared with engineering teams multiple times, but as we start talking about the impact that the work has on people, we start to look at accessibility in kind of a different lens. And over the last 3 years, I reflected back as I prepared for this presentation about how did we get there? How did we get from a place when we were not making the investments as a company in accessibility to where it's really something that's a priority and it's something that's creating market differentiation for us. And I came up with these 6 areas that were kind of key to our journey. And I'm going to walk through those and just talk about my experience working at Microsoft and some of the tactics that I used in each one of these places to help drive a change across our organization and set a different priority. But I think in the end of the day, if I had one thing to leave you with, and that is when you focus on making sure that your products are inclusive for everybody, you're going to end up creating a better design for everybody. Or when you focus on making it inclusive for people with disabilities, it ends up just making your entire product better. So the first set was really around resetting expectations. And I remember when I first told my wife that I was going to go work on accessibility, she says, why are you going to do that to your career? Like, that's a career-limiting move. But that was just because that was kind of, in many ways, the culture around how it's viewed inside the company. But with the support of senior management, the ability to connect it to so the first part of like, how do we change that perception? For me, the first part was about connecting it to your vision. What are you as a company trying to achieve? And how does this work help ladder in towards that? And many times that connecting to your vision is also about the market opportunity. There's over 1 billion people in the world who have a disability of different type. 70% of those disabilities are hidden. And there's a huge opportunity to differentiate yourself with a product that works well for everybody. We would do quite a bit of work about helping the engineers on the teams and helping the teams understand the impact of the product decisions they're making. So that's telling stories. In some cases, we would create videos of people with mobility impairments or vision impairments just trying to do simple tasks. Another thing that we did is we would go around to executives and we'd just say, hey, we would like to spend 30 minutes with you and just turn off your screen and just have you interact with the computer using a screen reader. And we'll help coach you along and move you along. But all of these things, what it did is it helped people understand how accessibility work impacts people that are just trying to do things that we all take that people without disabilities might just take for granted. So some of these demos and videos were really critical in changing people's perception that accessibility is something that we just do as a checkbox for compliance, to it's something that we can do to really just make our products easier for everybody to use. One of the stories that I would talk about quite a bit is that there's a significant legal landscape that's been changing. In the past, with the American Disabilities Act, there was a lot of lawsuits around how do we make our buildings accessible? Ramps, elevators, Braille in the right places. There's code, just like there's building codes, there's now code that you need to follow to ensure that people with disabilities can navigate physical building space. Well, most federal buildings, most major buildings today are accessible, and people can move freely in and out, and is able to get people with disabilities out into the community. Well, it turns out that there's another place where it's not so accessible, and that's many times our online spaces, the applications people use, the websites they use, the learning content. And so the legal work has been shifting, in many cases, from physical buildings now into online spaces. And a few web searches, you can start to find a lot of the cases out there around how that legal landscape is changing and how it's driving higher procurement laws and regulations inside of the government organizations. The other thing that we did from our resetting expectations is we would talk at the top, so we would work with executives around the work that we're doing, give them a clear picture about where we are, but we would also have conversations with individual contributors, people that are responsible for doing the work. And in many cases, I would have to tell, especially on the individual contributor level, like, look, the bar of what is accessible, the bar of what we're shooting for today is not what it was yesterday. And just because a bug has been punted in the past, that doesn't mean that that's acceptable for where we're going. We're going to set a much higher bar, and we're going to reset expectations. And so we'd have lots of those conversations about encouraging people to have the courage to describe how a specific feature is impacting people and push harder to get some of the accessibility work done that in the past might not have been done. And at the fundamental level, what it really was around is resetting expectations in engineering about what does it mean to ship a product. And nothing was more clear than several times when our executives say, we're not going to ship that product until it's accessible. And they just made the hard decision to stop ship on several products until we had remediated some of the accessibility concerns. And so along our journey, that would be what I would say is the first thing that really helped change the culture at Microsoft was many, many, many deep conversations around how we reset expectations. The second part about the journey, I've called this, as I've thought more and more about it, one of the things that I do at Microsoft is I work with lots of different teams on one particular issue. And accessibility is one, but there's other initiatives that I drive. And as part of that, I built this model around clarity, synergy, and urgency. And that's really the way that you're able to drive some of these complex cross-group conversations. I built, as part of the clarity and synergy, I don't think of this as one where you just drive clarity and then you move on to synergy and you drive synergy and get teams aligned and then you move on to urgency and get people doing the work. You have to continue to invest in all three of those areas, and it's just a cycle that we continue to come back to even today about helping teams understand the work from the perspective of the clarity about what we're trying to achieve, the impact that it's having on the market, other teams, how other teams are contributing, and then also urgency around certain events and different outcomes we're trying to drive. So this here is a checklist. I'm not going to go through it. It's a good resource for you after. But it's the types of activities that we would dive into on each one of these areas. And for me, a big part of it is helping people understand, like, what changed. We were making some decisions. Our business was doing well. We're heading down this path. Like, why should I work differently tomorrow than today? And that was really a great concept that we would continue to go back and have conversations with different teams. On the synergy side, if I had to highlight a couple of things, the biggest thing we did is we put together an overall scorecard. And we had this courage to be transparent with everybody in the organization. And all of a sudden, we started setting clear goals for for teams about where they're going to get from an accessibility perspective. And what happened is, a lot of teams wouldn't necessarily want to go make accessibility investments just on their own for their own business priority need. But when they started to see team after team after team after team in the executive support, then they started to see how their investments are going to really ladder into a bigger thing. And so that driving synergy and feeling like we're all in this together from both top-down and bottoms-up conversations really helped create to where people were willing to make that deeper engineering investment that they needed to make. And then the final thing I think has just been a real critical part, and that's just driving urgency. It's always easier to take a project and say, well, this other project still is most important. We need to prioritize here. But the types of things that I would do to drive urgency is I'd go out and I'd bring in people like Hector, who's out talking to customers every day. Another guy in Washington, D.C. that's like visiting with our government customers on a regular basis. I'd bring him in and have him share the experiences, or I'd have him write emails to us talking about the customers that he just met with last week and the challenges that they're facing in different areas. And then those emails would get shared widely with people so that we just help drive that. What does the customer care about this, and what's the perspective? If I was working on an individual app, I would encourage people to build relationships in the community, find people who have disabilities that are using their product, get their feedback, share that feedback with other people, bring them in for a day to just have a conversation with their engineering teams. In some cases, we'd arrange these meetings where we would have a person who uses a screen reader meet with the team and just give them a demo about how they use their product. And it was really eye-opening for engineering teams to start to see how someone would use their product and the challenges and struggles that they face. I remember one meeting where we were doing this. We were just doing a basic screen reader demo by someone who was blind with the engineering team. And a developer opened up his laptop and started typing. He was fixing a bug because he felt that sense of urgency. And he started being like, oh, that happened because I just copy and pasted this button, but I didn't give it a new name. So as the screen reader was going through, it's like given the same name of the last name, and so he didn't know that it was the call button or something like that. And so he was really excited. A lot of the fixes are easy fixes, but it's just helping build awareness and helping people have understanding about the impact that they have. Videos, sharing data, all of those things were really kind of critical. And I think, you could probably take this clarity, synergy, urgency model and some of the things that I have in this checklist and apply it to almost any project. This model was really effective for us at just getting movement, getting progress and traction on the work that we were doing. So the third part is really changing the mindset for engineering around what does accessibility mean. And I think when we first started doing the accessibility work, it was like, okay, that's the thing. We do some minimal things so that people who use assistive technology can do something with it. And that was okay. But I really believe that there's a more impactful message and a different way of thinking about it that has a bigger outcome. And that's really the work that we've been doing around inclusive design. And inclusive design, for me, fundamentally is innovation happens when you combine two previously undiscussed, two pieces of technology together in some new and interesting way. And usually you're led to innovation through constraints. One of the best examples of constraints is going to space. When I was at the Kennedy Space Center on a tour, they'd take around the bus, they started talking about this thing called space spin-offs. Turns out there's this whole industry that's built by the constraints of going to space. And one of the things I say is like, what better constraint is there from a human interface design perspective than my eyes don't work as well, or my brain mixes up letters and I don't read as well as other people, or my arms don't work, or there's all these different things. Those are constraints. And when you take a design problem and you add those constraints, you start to look to new ways to solving the problem that you probably didn't think about before. So let me give you an example of that. So let's imagine that I'm building a solution for somebody who's hard of hearing. That would be a permanent disability. And one of the common solutions that we have, you can see here today, is captioning. It's a common solution that we now have for people who are hard of hearing to be able to participate in society. Well, captions are also really great if you're in the airport and you're trying to watch a screen and it's busy and there's lots of stuff going on. But it also might be super interesting for a child who's learning to read to hear the voice and see the words and be able to do those things matching up. And so you can now start to see how something like captioning can start to transition across different places, across different domains. So one of the things, when we started talking about this, we started to come up with this conclusion that there's permanent disabilities, there's temporary, and situational limitations. And when you start to anchor as a design around, well, let me see if I can do a great job of solving for somebody with a permanent disability, then you could also start to recognize that it impacts just more than the people with a permanent disability. So let's take the example of touch. So a person who's born with one arm has one hand to use, and that would be a permanent disability. But if you think about it in a temporary situation, a couple of years ago I was out on a bike ride. I didn't make such a smart decision, and I crashed, and I broke my collarbone. For 6 weeks, I had a temporary limitation. And man, I was wishing that the software worked well so that I could just start speaking into it. And it was a point when we didn't have Dictate. It's a new feature that's inside of Windows, inside of Office now, and so now it's much easier to use Dictate to use your phone. And not super useful for someone with a permanent disability, but it would have been really useful for me when I had my broken arm. But if you think about it as a situational limitation, how many times do we have something in our hand, we're packing something, and we're trying to do this? Or a parent with a child on their arm. That's just an example of a situational limitation. So when we as a team started looking at disabilities, not as like, okay, let's go make sure that the person with a disability is able to use our product, but let's start expanding our vision around how that technology can help in lots of places where you have situational limitations. And I think that's for me, it's a fundamental mind shift around how you start to prioritize features. Because you start to think of like, oh, I don't really want to spend this much money for X percent that have a mobility impairment. But when you start to say, well, hey, this feature actually could be useful for a student who's on a run, or maybe it's interesting for someone who's driving home, they can still interact with Cortana or get some information. Like those are just all different cases where you have this situational limitation or temporary limitation. What it does is it expands the market. And as part of expanding the market, it forces you, a designer, to think differently about how you prioritize, and in many cases, how you fund. So I love this quote here. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but designing for a spectrum of people with distinct needs and goals can inspire new product ideas in ways you don't imagine. One example of that I think a lot about, and this is something we're not there yet on, but I'm a runner. I like to go running, but I also have a lot of work coming at me. And I would love to be able to just open up a Word document, hit play, and go on a run, and just listen to that, have it play back to me. Or a student who has if there's a PowerPoint deck and they want to just like listen to the notes for the class that's going to happen while they're walking to class. I just think there's lots of these examples where we can start redefining our products in different ways by expanding our vision. And we're making progress on some of those scenarios, sometimes not as fast as I like. I guess that's back to the urgency quadrant. But inclusive design doesn't mean that you're designing for one thing or all people. You're designing for a diversity of things so that everyone can find ways to participate. And so internally, when we started looking at things from that lens, what it really did is it changed the funding. Because like in the end of the day, we all have lots of great ideas, but you kind of have to figure out of like the 55 things we could do, what are the 3 or 4 things we're going to do? And by using inclusive design, we kind of started to change the math around the importance of different features. And it helped us prioritize some features in some new ways. So let me give you some examples. So this slide is really around, we have some inclusive design principles. The first one is recognize exclusion. And it happens to us in all different ways, and it's all part of our own biases that we carry with, and we just have to recognize that and be conscious of them. We learn from diversity, and I learn so much every time that I go out and I meet with the community of people who have different disabilities, and I hear how they're doing things, I hear how they're adapting to the challenges that they face. It invariably teaches me things that I've learned that I've been able to apply to my craft. And this is one of the parts that I really love, and that is when you start to solve for one, when you start to solve for these more corner cases, harder human interaction intercases, then you start to find this is where you extend to many. And it becomes more universally usable for everybody. So a couple examples. So our editor, it's a feature that just helps people with spelling. So I have a context menu. Inside of it, there's principle is misspelled, but then there's 3 different examples of principles, and underneath it they have the synonyms such as code, source, rules, main, leader, superintendent. And if you click the fly out of that, you could actually hear it read back to you. And we also have some inclusive language and plain language and ways to recommend a simpler way to say something. That all was inspired by this thing called the government's plain language, around how do we just write with more plain language. And so by looking at people with cognitive disabilities and who might struggle with more complex language, we're also able to inspire ways to improve grammar checking and the utility of our editor feature. Another example is Tell Me in our search control. Tell Me, or we call it now Microsoft Search, because we're expanding it to originally just started as how do you find commands. This is inspired a gentleman who was really kind of the key driver for this feature. His father's blind. And so he's kind of particularly interested in how we end up serving the people who are blind based on his own personal experience. And I remember this time in the hallway where he came up and he was trying to get people to get excited about a search for commands, and he was telling us about, we just did this study on the ribbon where they watched people who are blind just try to find long-tail commands, things you don't use all the time, and it was really painful because they had a really hard time navigating through all the different areas and the different chunks and the different hierarchies of it. But once we started doing this today, if I ever go to a conference for people who are blind, one of the first things I show them is just hit Alt-Q, start typing, and you can easily find almost any command in the ribbon. And we use AI to look at the language they're using and match it up to different things. We're also now expanding this to where you can find people inside of it, you can find other documents, you can find help control. And so it's just becoming this more and more useful command center. But it really was inspired, and I think a big part of why this leader pushed so hard to get this in the product was because he saw this implication that it had on people who are blind. But now many people that I talk to just love to use the Tell Me control to very quickly find and access different content across the office. So it's an example where you're inspired by one case, you build a solution that's more usable for everybody. The last example that I want to talk about, it's really one of my favorites. It's called Learning Tools. This started off in 2014, and the hackathon book the Ability Hack book tells the story about it. The abbreviated version of that story is some people got together and thought, hey, what would it be like if we helped people with dyslexia and dysgraphia read better? They went and they started reading a lot of the literature that's in there about accommodations that are provided for people with dysgraphia and dyslexia. And they built an add-in that has in many ways changed the conversation with Microsoft inside of education, because we're finding that it's helping everybody become better readers. So one of the features of Learning Tools is it'll just start reading out loud text. I use this on almost every important email that I have. Before I send it, if I hit the read aloud button now inside of Outlook, and it just starts reading through, I'll just kind of follow through. Invariably, I will find spelling mistakes or words that my brain told me was there that weren't there. And I'll be able to make those corrections before I hit send. And so it's a great way for me to end up proofing. It's also, if I'm reading a paper, and sometimes some people at Microsoft can write pretty dense, thick technical stuff, I'll put on Learning Tools, I'll put on Read Aloud, and it'll just help me help improve my comprehension and retention. And so this is a feature, today I think it's used by 13 million people. We're pretty excited about it, and it's really helped a lot of kids who really struggled with reading to start reading. One of the things we found is well, if you have dyslexia in school, you don't lose it when you go to the workplace. And so this is just one of those solutions that's helping not just students, it's helping employees, and it's having a broad impact. All right, so that inclusive design and having a different conversation with people where it's just not about compliance, it's about usability, and it's about looking at the diversity of human needs and really being able to map it into product experiences has really put a lot of momentum and energy at Microsoft in continuing to invest deeply and putting more and more time in it. But in the end of the day, also, you kind of have to have a governance model. It also is a compliance project. And as part of our governance model, so my teams today probably drive accessibility compliance across maybe 350 teams. And so we've learned a few things around how we do that and how we do it well. The first one is really making sure that you have clear roles and responsibilities. And that's one of the first things we did is like, okay, if you own accessibility, here's your job. Here's your job description. These are the things we expect you to do. And when we started the work, in a lot of cases, we didn't have clear ownerships. It's like, oh, yeah, somebody owns it. And now we have a scorecard where we have a clear owner, and we know exactly who we're going to go talk to hold accountable on that level. And when a team might be a little bit behind schedule on doing their work, then we're able to escalate that up their chain and make sure that their leaders know about it. And so that clear ownership and responsibilities is not just at the individual contributor, the guy that's responsible for writing the code. We end up making sure that that's deeply felt, not just at the IC level, but also at different levels of management. At Microsoft, we've found that we have to fund this centrally for doing testing and usability research. That if you leave it to an individual team to say, like, okay, go test for your own accessibility work, a lot of times that gets traded off against other things that the team might feel is more urgent. So we have a central funding model for testing and usability research. We just tell teams, like, you don't have to fund accessibility testing. Just tell us when your new feature is getting done, and we'll provide accessibility testing resources for you. And what that does is that just makes it super easy for people to do the right thing. And we've found in the accessibility space driving that people want to do the right thing. People don't want to, they don't want to discriminate against people who have disabilities. And many times the accessibility bugs are there just out of ignorance and just not fully understanding the implications of the code that they wrote. And so by just providing that really clear testing model, we found that a vast majority of the bugs that we log get fixed. We have a scorecard and we have a review process. Originally, the scorecard would get published every 3 months. What we found is you'd see people kind of fix their accessibility bugs, and then right before the scorecard was fixed, a whole bunch of bugs would get fixed. And then we go down for another 3 months, and then a whole bunch of bugs would get fixed. And so now we review that scorecard on a monthly basis, and we find that that's a good way to just keep a kind of consistent throughput of the accessibility work. We don't share our scorecard publicly, but what I do have here for you is the goals that we set down. When we first decided to create a scorecard, these are the goals that we set up, and these are examples of some of the metrics that we start to use to continue to drive accountability to teams on just a daily, weekly basis. So this is in the deck. If you want to kind of think about your own scorecard, these are some of the best tips that I have on how would you think about putting that together. I always think when you start a scorecard, the first thing to do is like think about what are the outcomes you're trying to drive. And that's how we really put together the goals of the scorecard. I do believe that people, for the most part, really want to do the right thing if they just know how to do that. And so the fifth part about this is really providing the right scalability and tools. I don't know that our solution is perfect for everybody, but I'll share with you a little bit about how Microsoft does it. The first part about it is when we look at an accessibility bug, if you log up, developers can find them kind of overwhelming when they get a ton of work there in an area that they're not used to working in. And it also can be this barrier to customers. So how do you end up taking and be able to work through and making sure that people had the right bugs at the right place with the right impact on scenario? What we found is we really needed to have this comprehensive test pass. It needed to have clearly defined steps. It needed to be teachable. We need to be able to repeat it. Today we've had probably over 500 people that have been trained in our in this thing called, I'll share in a second, it's Trusted Tester Program, because it needed to be scalable. We need to be able to provide this same level of service across every team at Microsoft. And we were pretty firmly in believing that it needed to be code-based inspection. It needed to be at the implementation level, because when you start having people just testing with AT, you'll get very different results. based on which piece of AT is being used. So we've embraced this program called the Department of Homeland Security's Trusted Tester Program. It basically does those things. It's a step-by-step code inspection way that's repeatable and trainable to teach people how to do accessibility testing. At the end of that, we will create conformance documents that we can give to government organizations to help speed up deployment, because they can know that this has been certified and trusted, passed through a trusted tester program, and we actually have like the IDs of the trusted testers. The program is basically an 80-hour training program that you go through online. There's a test at the end, so they have a certification process where someone has to demonstrate their ability to go find a certain set of bugs through a number of web pages. And so what that program has really given us the ability to scale. At the back, I think I have a URL to the Trusted Tester program. If you go to Trusted Tester, if you email them and say, hey, I would like to become a trusted tester, they'll sign you up for it. It's available for free for anybody that wants to take it. So it's certainly something that you can encourage your developers. It's a little bit rooted in the United States 508 refresh standards, but it's pretty darn close to being a worldwide universal program. We have some minor adoptions we've made to it for our specific worldwide needs, but it's really a great foundational way to just build up a very consistent, solid level of accessibility expertise. The final thing that we did is we really believe that you can't take accessibility and think about it as a compliance thing. It really comes to usability. And so as part of our program, we make it easy for teams at Microsoft to sign up to have a person with a disability use their product. We have asked teams to identify what's called the freeway scenarios. It's like using the 80-20 rule. What's the 20% of things that you expect 80% of your people to do? Like, what are the freeways through your product? We ask them to write those things down, and then we will have people with disabilities just try to do those things and give them feedback on it. And we found that time and time again, this really brings out great bugs. It finds things that are maybe not necessarily a quote-unquote fully compliant issue, but are a design issue. And when we start to fix those designs, it's making the product better for everybody. So getting feedback from people with disabilities has been a really important part of us raising the bar to a new level. One thing that I think about this area, I think about this metric called time to completion. How long does it take a person with a disability to complete a task? And how long is it? And I would love to at some point get to where we're really good at instrumenting that in our product, where we can start to see like, oh, people are using a screen reader take a lot longer to do this thing. Well, then that gives me a great opportunity of a place where I can go do innovation. And so the time to completion is something that we continue to think about. We also think a lot about efficiency, because one of the things we found, there's a ISO definition of usability. It's for a typical context of use. People can complete a task with efficiency and satisfaction. And we used to always rate, okay, was it efficient? Was it satisfying? We used to ask those two questions when they get done with this. And what we found is inevitably those two numbers are linked together. If it was inefficient, they were unsatisfied. If it was super efficient, they were very satisfied. So we stopped asking the satisfaction questions. We just came down to, for you and how you accomplished the task, was this efficient? Because there are people with very different levels of efficiency. And that was a pretty good correlation to how much people are loving the product we are using. So here's a bunch of different channels we use. We listen to internal employees. We have people with disabilities that do our assistive technology testing. Some cases we'll create formal usability studies where you bring people in the lab and you walk them through a study and you record it. And those are great when you end up wanting to share. Teams are a little more expensive than the people with disabilities that just kind of plow through on a regular basis testing. And also listen to your support channels. We found a lot of times, Microsoft has this program called the Enterprise Disability Answer Desk. So we found that to support people with disabilities is a very different thing than your normal support channel. They use different technologies. If they call up and they say, I'm running JAWS, on a normal support channel, they'll say, well, shut that off. Well, it's not an option for people who are blind. And so our Enterprise Disability Answer Desk gives us great feedback from customers about how we're doing. these are a number of resources that are available. There's a design kit that's online for inclusive design. You can go up there, download it. It has activities. There's things you can do that can help you build awareness, and it walks through the 3 different principles. I have a link to the Department of Homeland Security's Trusted Tester program. I think it's a great thing to encourage your developers that are working on accessibility to go spend the time to learn how to test for accessibility, and through learning that, they become very good developers on building things. So, other sessions that are happening along the way. Any questions? I'd love to have a conversation about kind of our journey or what you're thinking about. I can go back to all the different resources slides. Any questions? Okay, thank you.